There's no such thing as rare earth. There's rare processing.
I believe over the next few years, the United States government will deploy hundreds of billions of dollars of capital into the mining sector between debt and equity. Hundreds of billions of dollars of capital, hundreds of billions of dollars of capital, hundreds of billions of dollars of capital.
Welcome back to Rockstock Channel. It is Thursday, January 22nd. I'm away this week in Costa Rica, but I've been closely following a fast-moving set of developments across critical minerals, power markets, and industrial policy coming out of Saudi Arabia, Davos, and both the legislative and executive branches in Washington, D.C. As I did this time last year in a video titled Optimistic Thought, Trump 2.0 Lithium, we've stitched together a series of video and audio clips that capture the most important signals I'm seeing after some brief framing comments I want to make just now. Earlier this month, in my first Lithium-ion bull issue for 2026, I wrote that Washington had stopped issuing policy papers and started writing checks last year, and that the U.S. was beginning to behave more like USA Inc., capitalism with Chinese characteristics, America's version of Belt and Road. The last few days and weeks have reinforced that framing. We've seen the Secure Minerals Act introduced in Congress, as well as explicit White House commentary around stockpiling and protecting mining returns, with direct references to government-backed deals involving MP Materials, Lithium Americas, Korea Zinc, and public-private platforms, investment platforms like Orion Mine Finance and TechMet. This is no longer abstract policy. This is capital allocation. At the start of this video, you heard Donald Trump say rare earths are not rare. Processing is. Which led me to today's title, Processing Trump's Mineral Policy. What really stood out to me, though, were remarks made at the Future Minerals Forum by David Copley from the National Security Council, who laid out a clear and pragmatic framework around 4 pillars. 1. Investing in mining projects. 2. Stockpiling minerals. 3. Protecting producers from distorted markets. And 4. Rebuilding the broader mining ecosystem. And further, he announced an expectation that hundreds of billions of dollars of capital could ultimately be deployed across the sector from Uncle Sam. At the same time, we're seeing parallel signals coming from the power markets. Last week, the White House National Energy Dominance Council and a group of governors sent a joint letter to PJM Interconnection, the largest regional grid operator in the United States, responsible for running wholesale electricity markets serving roughly 65 million people across the Mid-Atlantic and parts of the Midwest and South. The letter called for changes to capacity market design, including longer-term price certainty for new generation, clearer cost allocation to data centers, and explicit protections for residential consumers. That letter became a key catalyst for a recent all-in podcast discussion around grid strain, AI load growth, and the sheer scale of investment now required in generation, storage, and infrastructure. Chamath Palahapitiya, in particular, leaned into a provocative idea that solar plus batteries, deployed at scale with the right financing and market structure, could dramatically lower residential electricity costs, even framing a pathway where electricity begins to feel free to households. This is where the connective tissue starts to matter. Batteries, materials, and the electrostate narrative are no longer theoretical. They're showing up simultaneously in mineral policy, grid design, AI infrastructure, and capital markets. It was notable how prominently lithium featured in the discourse at the Future Minerals Forum, not as a niche battery material, but as core industrial infrastructure. 3 of the speakers on stage alongside David Copley represented and discussed lithium: Albemarle, Sigma Lithium, and Codelco, which now has a joint venture with SQM. We're also seeing this play out on the ground. Tesla's now operational 50,000 ton per year lithium hydroxide refinery is leading the way. But it's just the beginning. The U.S. will likely need 20 to 30 more such plants over the next decade to feed cathodes, batteries, grid storage, defense electrification, and AI infrastructure. That scale of build-out doesn't happen without capital, and capital doesn't move without price stability. That's why I've been arguing that lithium price stability is the missing link, not just for mining, but for the entire mine-to-battery midstream, much like mine-to-magnets in rare earths. A strategic lithium reserve, or SLR, is designed to address that volatility and make large-scale processing, conversion, and manufacturing financeable. To bridge these policy and power market signals into a broader framework, we're going to splice in several clips from the most compelling panel I attended last year at DERVOS, which was just republished on Spotify, a link for which is in the show notes below. DERVOS is intentionally modeled after Davos, but is focused on distributed energy resources. Think of it as the Davos of DERs. The panel includes rare and extensive perspective from Drew Baglino, formerly of Tesla and now CEO of Heron Power, who helped architect Tesla's battery supply chain and stood alongside Elon Musk at Battery Day in 2020, laying out plans that included lithium refining, cathodes, and energy storage at scale. I remember Battery Day well. It's when Rockstock Channel published its first videos, quoting extensively from Drew and Elon. You'll also hear from LG Energy Solution, which discussed how its U.S. battery manufacturing has rapidly shifted from EV-centric demand toward grid-scale energy storage. They have grown from 4 gigawatt-hours to more than 30 gigawatt-hours of ESS capacity in just a few years. And you'll also hear from Ember Energy, which frames the broader geopolitical shift as one from petrostates to electrostates, where cheap, reliable electricity becomes the foundation of national competitiveness. As you listen, I'd suggest focusing on 3 ideas. First, there is no magic ingredient. Capital flows where returns are stable. Second, the U.S. absolutely can build and compete, but volatility and policy whiplash kill momentum. And third, delivered electricity prices cannot spiral. If power costs surge, the AI race, reindustrialization, and energy transition all slow. That's where the PJM letter, the all-in discussion, and the industrial policy shift we're seeing in critical minerals all start to connect. Taken together, a few things are becoming clearer. If you want to understand where government capital and policy support may flow next, it's often best to look at where it has already gone, which companies have already received some capital in lithium, rare earths, titanium, nickel, processing, and now power markets, and how those early signals will shape the next wave of capital formation. Enjoy the clips that follow, and I look forward to being back with my besties Matt Fernley and Rodney Hooper for a Rockstock recap next week. Pura Vida, Costa Rica.
This refinery is the first spodumene to lithium hydroxide refinery in North America. We're deploying a new technology platform that is inherently much more environmentally friendly and cleaner. It's a simpler process. It's a less expensive process. I'm Jason Bevan. I'm the site manager for Tesla's Gulf Coast Lithium Refinery, just outside of Corpus Christi, Texas. Spodumene is a lithium-containing ore. It's a hard rock material that is rich in lithium.
We sustainably source spodumene and bring it to site, where we then run it through a series of conveyance systems, take it through a kiln and cooler. From there, we take it through an alkaline leach and additional purification steps, take it into crystallization and produce battery-grade lithium hydroxide. Our process is more sustainable than traditional methods and eliminates hazardous byproducts and instead produces a co-product named analcime used in concrete mixes.
From breaking ground in 2023 to running rock through the kiln in 2024 to start a full integrated plant startup now in 2025, we've achieved the fastest time to market for this first of its kind technology. By removing many of the traditional stage gate hurdles seen in large projects, we were able to complete feasibility, design, and construction in parallel, significantly accelerating our construction timeline.
This refinery really enables us to have access to the critical minerals for energy storage, for battery manufacturing, and ultimately for EV growth. And it enables us to accelerate Tesla's mission by regionalizing supply chains for battery minerals and materials, by providing jobs, by cutting emissions from the transportation network that's required for those supply chains. It really allows us to usher in energy independence for North America.
David, you're the sole government representative here. I think it's fair to say, also coming from the White House, in the course of 12 months, as Becky referenced, my goodness, a lot's changed. Things have radically changed, even on this platform here, from 12 months ago. So I think perhaps could you first of all give us in a nutshell your White House perspective, because we're going to draw on that to see how that affects many other parts of the world and indeed the mineral sector. So over to you to kick us off.
Thank you, David, for inviting me to join the panel today, and thank you so much to our Saudi Arabian hosts for putting on this incredible event. Well, I think the straightforward answer to your panel question of whether mining companies are going to regain a leadership role in national development is unequivocally yes. And as a result, mining companies are going to get a lot of attention from guys like me in governments around the world. In the United States, for a number of decades, we've badly neglected our mining sector and generally been happy to outsource mining activities to other countries and governments around the world. According to Standard & Poor's, it takes 29 years to build an average mine in the United States, largely because of our very onerous permitting regime. But I'm proud to say that under President Trump's leadership, the United States has done a complete 180 in the last 12 months and again made mining a priority area for our national development. Because as all of you understand, minerals are the elemental building blocks of everything we need to reindustrialize our country. So what are we doing in the US? I would say broadly 4 things. We're investing in mining projects, we're stockpiling minerals, we're going to protect our mining companies, and we're rebuilding our mining ecosystem. To start, we're investing heavily in mining-specific projects, like our recent deals with MP Materials, Lithium Americas, Korea Zinc, Ma'aden here in the Kingdom, and many, many others. I believe over the next few years, the United States government will deploy hundreds of billions of dollars of capital into the mining sector between debt and equity. We are doing things the American government has never done before, like equity investing, so we can get deals to pencil quickly and move forward. We're creating public-private investment funds like our Critical Minerals Consortium with Orion Resources in New York. We have partnerships with other minerals-focused investment funds like TechMet, and there will be plenty more to come here as we seek to make sure the United States has a roadmap for every mineral we need to power our economy. Second, we've begun stockpiling minerals. President Trump convinced Congress over the summer to give us $2 billion to stockpile critical minerals in our national defense stockpile. That's the largest investment we've made in stockpiling since the Cold War ended. And we're actively working with our private sector on plans right now to stockpile minerals for our civilian economy as well. Third, we're going to protect our mining companies. We know the mining industry has a problem with commodity pricing caused by strategic overproduction and dumping. Returns in the mining sector on average have not been good enough for the last 2 or 3 decades, at least partially due to this problem. I don't want to get too far ahead of our policy process here, but we're having nearly daily conversations with our international partners about how to protect our collective mining ecosystems from state-subsidized competition so investment returns can be healthier again and the capital markets can function normally.
Okay, and a brief word on your 4th point. Sorry to interrupt you there, Dave, but if you can move on to the rebuilding of the ecosystem.
Yep. So we're fixing our mining ecosystem in the United States. 29 years to build a mine is not acceptable to President Trump. We're going to fix this. We're making critical minerals products in the U.S. are probably our #1 priority right now. We have a federal priority list for permitting. It's basically never been used for mining projects before. We've added 52 critical minerals products to the list, and we've created multiple different structures to permit projects, and we can now do we call our environmental impact statements literally in less than a month when we need to for the national energy emergency declared by the president. So it's not going to take 29 years to build mines anymore. It's going to move a lot faster than that, and we're already doing it. So 4 things: investing, stockpiling, protecting our mining companies, and fixing our mining ecosystem because this industry is so important to our national development.
Excellent. David, thanks very much indeed. You ended up on the EIS, the Environmental Impact Statement, and you've pulled that dramatically back in terms of time frame. I think everyone here knows permitting is a massive challenge, needs to be refined.
In all of that, what I learned is that there isn't like some magic ingredient that exists in China that means that they necessarily will be more capable of manufacturing something than we are in the US. Because everything I just described, we did in the US first. There's not some like secret ingredient. I think it's a question of will and capital allocation and businesses making rational decisions in response to the stimuli, on like where they can get the best return and the stable return. And China has just made that decision-making calculus so easy, and the US has made it hard. China did it because it was necessary, right? Like they don't have an alternative where the US does. I mean, at some point it will be obvious, and the US, I think, will at that point rapidly progress. It's already progressing in the direction of becoming an electro-state.
We invested hugely into the EV supply chain, and guess what? The EV market hasn't quite turned out to what everyone expected it to be. But second, guess what? The ESS market is turning into something that's really exciting. And so when we started off, it was, we'll build 4 gigawatt hours of LFP cells for ESS. Maybe that'll be interesting. And then quickly it turned into 16, then it turned into 20, then it turned into 30, then it turned into 40, and who knows where it's going to go. But because we saw that long-term view, we were in a position to take advantage, be able to pivot and take advantage of that.
Because we're kind of stuck between these two camps at the moment, where on the one hand, we have sort of this fossil gradualist view that, there's no energy transition, there's only energy addition going on, this sort of framing that fossil fuels are the pinnacle of human invention. And on the other hand, we have a much more sort of almost like technocratic view of the energy system as a problem to be solved. It's a net zero or bust attitude where we need to solve this by 2050 or we might as well give up. But the magnetic center that all these new exciting technologies are around is the electron, right? This is not clean tech, it is electrotech. It is new electric technology that is just superior. 75% of the global population lives in countries that are net importers. And so we shouldn't be surprised that we keep underestimating the pace of change.
You can just sort of look at the rise and fall of empires as a function of who dominates the cheapest energy source and their conversion technologies, right? So Britain had coal and the steam engine, but they declined as oil and the internal combustion engine came along, which catapulted the US into our position in the first and very clearly dominant petrostate. With electricity fast becoming the dominant energy input, China is emerging as the first and most dominant electrostate.
I think the president should try to create a $500 billion tax equity fund and help eliminate the electricity costs of 50 to 100 million American households.
Amazing.
If you actually go to solar and storage, for every 15 million homes, you take a terawatt hour of demand off the grid. That's an extra terawatt hour that you don't need to build. So the reason why I like solar and storage is you make these folks so self-reliant. Now, all of a sudden, we're actually catching up to China faster than we would have otherwise. We actually get a 2-for-1. The consumer homes don't have that anxiety anymore. They don't have the bill. And because they're generating their own power, they're off the grid. And now what that means is that extra terawatt hour can actually go to the commercial and industrial applications, including these data centers. The president preserved the ability to make those kinds of investments and be tax advantaged for doing it in the One Big Beautiful Bill.
And if we want to live in the age of abundance and we want to bring the bottom half of the country up and we want affordability, where do people spend their money? Food, groceries, their rent, and their electricity and the utilities. So it doesn't come out of Americans' pockets and their taxes. It comes out of corporations, which are printing money. If you want to talk about redistribution of wealth, this is a way for the great American Mag 7 corporations to give something back to Americans.
We will look back and I think that we will want to have seen these big companies who are unbelievably profitable step up on behalf of American homeowners.
We have to be sustainable. We need investments. We have to be profitable. You have to work with local communities and governments. You have to do all of that. And I would say that's our license to operate. But we have to be profitable to do that.
What we've done that was so unique in Brazil, we've shown a way of how to actually embrace community and literally create a shield, because the community is overwhelmingly supportive. And at that, we advanced the projects at a speed which it became what I call a huge source of praise. You move as fast as the Chinese, but why? The community is behind us.